Today I'll be talking about dividend investing versus savings accounts in general, and whether putting your money into one of these vehicles is fundamentally better than putting them in the other. This question was inspired by Shock City Rocker, who basically asked, how do you feel about dividends versus a high yield savings account? I'd like to get a portfolio going, but currently have a high yield savings with a 2.25% APY. With my current dollar amount, I can earn around $100 a month off of that with no risk or effort. Some of these dividends I've seen pay around 2.25% as well. So would you say that you stand to reap greater benefits from investing? Thanks. So first of all, thanks for the question. The parts that I'll focus on are this number right here, 2.25% APY, as well as this part right here, which is no risk or effort. So obviously on my channel, I talk about investing most of the time. I'd say 90% of the time. So I might be a little bit more biased towards investing. But I do think that the answer can differ depending on your circumstances. So here's my answer pretty much. First of all, what is your time frame? So for example, if you need the money in 4 to 5 years or less, I would choose a savings account. I would not want to risk my money into stocks or bonds or the stock market if I needed that money desperately within 4 to 5 years or less. It just wouldn't make sense, and a lot of the benefits that dividend investing can give you generally need at least 4 to 5 years before they really start to take effect. But for most of the cases, I do believe dividend investing is better, and here's why. Reason number one, starting yields can be much higher. So in that original question, Shock City Rocker mentioned a 2.25% APY, and there are a lot of dividend stocks that do start there, but there are a lot of dividend stocks that start at much higher than 2.25%. What I've gathered here is monthly dividend stocks with a greater than 2.5% yield. Also note that I picked monthly dividend stocks, meaning that they pay dividends every single month, which means that that amount will compound a lot quicker when reinvested. So the first stock on the list is ticker symbol SPHD, which is S&P 500 High Dividend Low Volatility Fund. This is a diverse ETF with a starting yield of 4.05%. Next on the list is ticker symbol O, which is Realty Income. Realty Income is a REIT with a starting yield of 3.85%. Next on the list is ticker symbol MAIN, also known as Main Street Capital. They are an asset management company. They deal with debt and financing, and they have a starting yield of 7.38%. So the reason why I included stocks with ranging between 3.85% and 7.38% is just to show how high the starting yields can actually get. Obviously, it depends on your situation of whether or not you trust stocks with a higher than a 5% dividend yield, for example. I personally would trust Main Street Capital, but it may take some research to decide for yourself. If in fact you are a little bit worried about high dividend yields, I would definitely recommend SPHD. They are once again a diverse ETF with some of the highest dividend and lowest volatility stocks in the S&P 500. Reason number two, dividend stocks can increase their dividends every single year. So this is different than simply reinvesting your dividends or reinvesting your APY, for example. This basically means that just for holding these dividend stocks, the percentage that they pay out will actually increase every single year. So what I've done here is compiled a list of stocks with 25 plus years of consistent consecutive dividend increases, also known as dividend aristocrats. I've picked a few of the most popular ones, and we'll start from the top to bottom. First is ticker symbol J&J, also known as Johnson & Johnson. They are in the healthcare sector with a starting yield of 2.74%. Once again, this starting yield is the lower of the three, but this one actually has a higher starting yield than the 2.25% APY that was cited. Their last dividend increase was 5%. And so this is just a ballpark estimate of what we can expect going forward. And I would definitely expect that Johnson & Johnson would continue to increase their dividends every single year. Next on the list is ticker symbol PG, also known as Procter & Gamble, which is in the consumer defensive sector. They have a starting yield of 3.85%, and their last dividend increase was 4%. Next on the list is ticker symbol KO, also known as Coca-Cola. They are in the consumer defensive sector as well. They have a starting yield of 3.23%, and their last dividend increase was around 2%. So the dividend increases can range pretty wildly. If we're talking about stocks in the technology sector, for example, we would expect some higher dividend increases and some lower starting yields. And once again, you can pick some stocks that you are comfortable with. And just to recap what a dividend increase means, once again, basically, if I hold 100 shares of Coca-Cola, then between now and next year, I can expect that the yield that I'm getting will increase by 2% from this year to the next. At least that's a ballpark estimate. So this comes in handy when you want to retire, for example, and are thinking about methods of investing that can keep up with inflation. Of course, if you are talking about dividend investing, then chances are you won't have to sell your stocks and you can primarily live off your dividends if you have accumulated enough shares. Reason number 3 is dividend stocks generally appreciate over time. And the same is true for most of the stock market, but it's especially true for dividend stocks. Once again, I've included the same 3 stocks in the last couple slides, which is Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, and Coca-Cola. The only difference is that here I've included their 5-year performance. So over the past 5 years, Johnson & Johnson has increased by 37%, Procter & Gamble has increased by 33%, and Coca-Cola has increased by 21%. So this is something that a savings account cannot and will not do, and that's basically increase in terms of capital appreciation. So we've mentioned 3 benefits of dividend investing over a savings account, but are there any downsides? Yes, potentially. Potential downside number 1 is that there is a bit of effort up front, especially if we're talking about stock picking. So if you go the route of picking an ETF like SPHD, there probably won't be much effort up front. But for some reason, if you're not a fan of SPHD and would rather pick the stocks yourself, especially if you don't like the companies that are in SPHD or in any other ETF, then there will have to be some stock picking, which will require a bit of research upfront. The research is not only for picking the stocks that you like, but it's also for picking yields that you're comfortable with. For example, you may not want to pick starting yields that are too high or too sporadic or with potential of getting cut and things like that. The next reason is the risk of a correction or a recession. So once again, this is why I emphasize the 5-year time frame. If you have more than 5 years, I truly think that the reward that comes with dividend investing is higher than the risk and it's worth it. But it's not a nice feeling to get into a correction or recession, especially watching your portfolio decrease during that time frame. So it is not for everyone. And once again, that ties into the peace of mind is that on a daily basis, your portfolio can actually fluctuate. And chances are, if you're talking about dividend stocks like the ones that I mentioned, your portfolio won't fluctuate all that much, but it will still change on a daily time frame nonetheless. And so that's something that you have to ask yourself is, can you deal with that daily fluctuation and volatility? In summary, I think dividend investing is a conservative way to increase wealth and superior to a savings account. Definitely comment down below if you have any questions, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.